Welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. We're also on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Our television stations on cable in the local area here in Oakland County are on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. If you do not have access to these two channels in particular, you can always find us online, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link at the top of the homepage or on the left side of your screen in the pull-down menu on your mobile phone. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and facebook.com/LakesFM. In addition, we're always on My Michigan Television, My Michigan TV, Michigan's very own streaming network. It's content from all around the state of Michigan from a number of different creators on a number of different topics. You can find us on their website, mymitv.com. That's mymitv.com. You can also find them on iPhone, on Android TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, your smart TV, and on your mobile phone on the My Michigan TV app. Just search My Michigan TV, and you can find us on the My app each and every day on our show here, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until 12 noon. And as always, find us on the radio in the greater West Bloomfield area on 89.3 Lakes FM, and on the radio in the Birmingham Bloomfield area on 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District, as we continue to bring you more information about COVID-19 and other news and information from around not only Oakland County, but the entire state of Michigan, as life continues to vary, continues to be different in the times that we're in, not only because of COVID, but because we live in a constantly changing world, and we want to help to keep you up to date on that and continue to bring you important information that relates to COVID-19 as we continue through this pandemic, and to find that information directly from reputable sources that you can trust, that are experts on this topic, without digging through the weeds of the internet. We give you a direct source to that on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We have links to the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and a number of our local municipalities and their COVID-19 direct pages. So if you are a resident of Bloomfield Hills, you go to our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. You click on the Bloomfield Hills link, it'll open a new tab and take you directly to the coronavirus page on the City of Bloomfield Hills website. Same thing if you're living in Orchard Lake Village, if you're living in Pontiac, if you're living in Troy. And if you're not in one of these local Oakland County municipalities, you can find more information on a statewide level by clicking on that State of Michigan page, where it'll take you to the page with the latest updates from the state of Michigan, from the Health and Human Services Department, about any pandemic orders that may come in place, recommendations for your office, for your school, for what to do to protect your children from COVID-19 as they head back into the classroom, and much more, as well as give you answers on questions about COVID-19, about the pandemic, where we're at as a state. Information you may want to know about the COVID-19 vaccines, if you still have those questions, or you need information about resources that you can turn to in your local area instead of digging through the state of Michigan's website, instead of trying to do your own searches and maybe finding information that looks like it's accurate but may or may not be accurate. We take you directly to those sources. Again, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We have links to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and a number of municipalities in the Oakland County area as well. We also link to some of the most important articles from each and every day from our local newspapers and other outlets, as well as we continue to support local journalism as well. They've been on the front lines throughout this pandemic, bringing you information that you need to know in your community and throughout the state of Michigan. And those top stories each and every day we post on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. And today's first story, as Michigan reaches a somber milestone in this pandemic, as Michigan has surpassed more than 20,000 deaths due to COVID-19. This from the Detroit News. More than 20,000 Michigan residents have now died due to COVID-19, a grim milestone in the pandemic that has gripped the state of Michigan's first cases, which were confirmed on March 10th of 2020. That means that 1 in 504 Michiganders have died from COVID-19. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services reported on Friday 20,011 confirmed deaths as the state prepares for a projected new onslaught of infection caused by the highly transmissible Delta variant that is sweeping the nation. Michigan added 29 deaths over a 2-day period to surpass the milestone and had 3,127 new infections to reach 919,133 confirmed total cases. Many families are still coping with the grief and the loss more than a year after Metro Detroit first became a national hotspot for COVID in spring of 2020. For others, such as the family of Danielle Shuey, a 45-year-old wife and mother from Warren who died on May 5th, the pain is new and acute. In a quote from her husband, Bill Shuey, quote, "I wake up alone. I go to bed alone. I just miss her." Bill Shuey said, who is now raising the couple's 3 teen and preteen daughters by himself. He continued, "She was my world, my soulmate, and I feel lost." Confirmed deaths associated with COVID-19 have risen and fallen in a series of 3 waves over the past 17 months, with a quarter of the fatalities associated with the first wave of the virus back in the spring of 2020. As of Thursday, Michigan ranked 12th in the nation for deaths per 100,000 people, coming behind states such as New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Pennsylvania, according to the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. With 617,096 deaths through Thursday across the United States, according to the CDC. The COVID-19 pandemic appears on track to exceed deaths from the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. There's no official death count for the pandemic that swept through the country in 1918, though through the winter of 1919, says J. Alex Navarro, assistant director at the Center for the History of Medicine at the University of Michigan. Researchers estimate there were between 625 and 675,000 deaths from that pandemic. The Spanish flu had a higher mortality rate, meaning a greater percentage of the people who got sick did perish, but the novel coronavirus is more infectious, as much as 2 to 3 times as much for the Delta variant, so more people are at risk of getting sick. And the COVID-19 pandemic is lasting longer than the pandemic of 1918, said Navarro. The current pandemic has tested the public's patience due to its long durations. Residents who have had to cope with the return of measures like recommended mask wearing to try to halt the spread of the virus through Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer has said she does not plan any more epidemic orders for mask mandates or restaurant shutdowns. A 4th surge is possible, and as many as 6,000 more residents could die because of the virus this fall, according to a presentation released last week Wednesday by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Under current vaccination and social contact trends, which could change, the projections from the University of Michigan say the state could experience just under 4,000 to just over 6,000 deaths linked to the virus between August and November. That is in a full article. That full article available on the Detroit News. Click on our website, on the link on our website, and it'll take you right there as we continue to see the numbers here in the state of Michigan continue to rise. They continue to rise across the United States. Vaccination numbers continue to stagnate, and it's a point of concern because, as we've talked about numerous times with medical experts, particularly Dr. Russell Faust, who we have on the show regularly, the medical director at the Oakland County Health Division, as this virus continues to spread, as these variants continue to spread, they mutate. And every time they mutate, they get a little bit stronger. They build a little bit differently. And eventually, we are going to be reaching a point where if we don't get this under control, these viruses could theoretically jump the red line and outdo our vaccines. These viruses could become much more severe in their symptoms and are clearly over the course of time, as we've gone from variant to variant, whether it was earlier on in the pandemic to a few months ago with the UK variant, the B117, now with Delta, with Lambda, with Delta Plus, and with Gamma coming down the line. Those are all trending so far to be more transmissible than the previous version. So we're continuing to battle that battle of the test of time. And every time we go forward, every month we go forward, every day, every week we go forward without reaching a certain vaccination number, with not curbing the spread of COVID-19, we continue to run that risk. And that's definitely what the warning is in this article, and what the reminder is from this article as Michigan surpasses 20,000 deaths due to the novel coronavirus during this pandemic. Continuing to look at the impact of the pandemic as well as population change on many of Michigan's most most important industries. We'll look at the rural population as its losses have added to farm and ranch labor shortages. This article also from our friends over at the Detroit News. Rural America has lost more population in the latest census, highlighting an already severe worker shortage in the nation's farming and ranching regions and drawing calls for those industries for immigration reform to help ease the problem. The census data released last week showed that population gains in many rural areas were driven by increases in Hispanic and Latino residents, many of whom come in as immigrants to work on farms or in meatpacking plants or to start their own businesses. We've struggled on this decision for a long time to try to come up with a more reasonable, common sense approach. That a quote from John Hanson, the president of the Nebraska Farmers Union, which is part of a group lobbying Congress for new immigration laws. Vilifying immigrants, quote, just makes it harder to get there. The population trend is clear in Nebraska, where 24 of the state's 93 counties gained residents. Of those 24, just 8 reported an increase in the white population, suggesting most of the growth was driven by minorities, says David Droz, the research coordinator for the University of Nebraska Omaha's Center for Public Affairs Research. He crunched the census data and found that Nebraska counties with the greatest racial diversity are a, quote, who's who of where the meatpacking plants are, and closed quote. Even though many plants are in rural areas that are often perceived as being mostly white. He continued in a quote, in the rural areas, if you don't have the Latino growth, employers would be struggling even more to fill those populations, and closed quote. Some Republican state legislators blame the labor scarcity on supplemental unemployment benefits, which they say create a disincentive to work because they pay more than some low-wage jobs. Democrats see a persistent labor crisis. The challenge is exacerbated in Midwestern states that already have many of the nation's lowest unemployment rates, said Al Junke, executive director of Nebraska's Pork Producers Association. Junke said his group would like to see changes that would allow seasonal immigrant workers to stay in the country longer. In the quote, Mr. Junke said, quote, these folks buy houses, they bring their families, they go to our churches, they earn money, and they spend it locally. It's really a win-win for these communities. And we continue to see, and this has been a trend, not just in recent times, with especially over the last 10 years, which census data is based on, but it's been a trend over time as we've gone further into a more technological age, into a more industrial age. Less people are willing to continue to work on the farms and be in the fields and be picking the plants and harvesting and doing all the other manual labor that goes into running these farms. And we continue to see that it tends to be immigrant population, whether it be through legal immigration or quote unquote illegal immigration, that's how those jobs are filled. And so these trends shouldn't be all that surprising that where you see a increase in Hispanic and Latino populations, particularly immigrants coming into these communities, that those jobs are filling up and those farms are having an added benefit, whereas in communities where they're losing population, that they're finding it to be a lot harder to get people to fill those jobs, where you're also seeing in a number of other industries, whether it be retail, whether it be in an office setting, or really just any industry at this current time with the quote-unquote labor shortage, labor issue that we're having across the country. Filling any of those jobs has been easier said than done. That's a really interesting article from the Detroit News. There's a lot more detail in there than what we've gone over. I highly suggest you go up to our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Click on that link and go ahead and read the entire article. And while you're at it, if you have the extra funds, please subscribe to our friends over at the Detroit News, the Detroit Free Press, Bridge, MLive, wherever it be. Support local journalism. They are really helping to keep us informed in the best way possible. Lastly, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. As we head into the school year, many schools are, this is some of the ways that schools are spending more than $6 billion in federal COVID-19 relief. This from our friends over at Bridge, Michigan Magazine. School leaders delivered books to children's doors, hired tutors, replaced hard hard-to-clean carpeting and offered more summer school than ever before. Now they're upgrading ventilation systems, replacing water fountains with more sanitary water bottle fill stations, and adding soap dispensers. Some are investing in thousands of laptop computers and expanding virtual learning programs in case COVID-19 resurges during the school year. Others, more confident that the pandemic is coming to an end, are investing in programs that bolster traditional learning. Beyond that, a lot of school leaders don't know yet what they'll do with a windfall of roughly $6 billion in federal COVID aid coming over 3 years. It's the kind of money school leaders never envisioned and know they'll never see again. That's why they want to ensure it's spent wisely, according to interviews Bridge, Michigan and Chalkbeat Detroit conducted with leaders in 5 Michigan counties, those being Benton Harbor, Flint, Alpena, Traverse City, and Niles. In a quote from Eric Leske, the principal and CEO of Flint Cultural Center Academy and K-8 charter school, he said, quote, "I don't want to commit to spending this money on something I'm not 100% sure is going to make a difference in the lives of the children in our community." He continued on, "I need to get these kids back first. I need to get the feedback from my staff on what they think they need to make sure we are impactful. I want to see the kids back. I want to see how they're engaging and how they are emotionally," end closed quote. That sounds reasonable to the State Board of Education President Cassandra Olbrich. She says in a quote in this article from Bridge, Michigan, "When you have a big pool of money like this, it makes sense to come up with a very strategic plan. It provides the opportunity to also be very creative," end closed quote. Congress approved $189 billion from the nation's K-12 schools over 3 years from the Elementary Secondary School Relief, or ESSER, and Governor's Emergency Education Relief Funds. The most funding is targeted for districts with high poverty and large populations of students of color, English language learners, students with disabilities, migratory families, and other groups most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Michigan was awarded about $6.1 billion over 3 years. Administrators across the state who spoke with Bridge and Chalkbeat suggested it take all of those 36 months to decide how to spend it. School boards and superintendents have wide discretion. This money can be used to support safe, in-person instruction to recover learning loss from during the pandemic, or to support the academic, social, and emotional needs of students. People who expect dramatic increases in test results might be underestimating the severity of the pandemic's disruption on education, says Catherine Strunk, director of the Education Policy Innovation Collaborative and a professor of education policy at my alma mater, Michigan State University. She says, quote, "There's a real learning recovery that needs to happen," end closed quote. So a lot of these programs will be centered toward that recovery of learning loss. And in some cases, it's being perceived by these school districts not necessarily as being learning loss, but more of a stagnation, more of a slowdown as they try to keep pace but also not overwork the students in an already treacherous school year. And so a lot of these programs that are coming into place are going to be extremely helpful. And what was of note in here was in school districts that have a high population of students, that are in areas that have higher poverty, to put them in positions to upgrade their systems, to upgrade their educational programs, to provide them with the ability to give access to technology to students that may otherwise not have had that access to technology, which helps to bridge that gap between more affluent communities and communities that tend to have less of those resources that are becoming much more commonplace, not only in our regular industries across the world, but also in the education system as well. The big question here that I would have for all these districts as they bring in this nearly $6.1 billion total across the state of Michigan over the next 3 years is, how do you implement these programs, put these things in place, provide these resources to your students, to your teachers, to these families, to the paraeducators throughout your districts, but then continue those programs on afterward. That's got to be another big question that there's certainly a lot of time to figure that out, but it's also something where once you put those programs in place and they're having those immense benefits, pulling that back is going to be a lot harder than putting it into place. That article and more on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, as well as important links that bring you directly to information that you know you can trust from experts on the front lines of this pandemic, from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, from the state of Michigan, from Oakland County, and more. Boy, do we have a great show coming up for you today. Coming up next, we'll be speaking with the founder and executive director of Fleece and Thank You, At the bottom of the hour, we'll speak with Kecia Williams and Curt Lawson from the West Bloomfield Police Department. And then and we'll speak to John McNamara as well from the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. And then in the second hour of the show, we will finish off today's program speaking with the CEO of Brilliant Detroit. Of course, last week we spoke with 4 students from the Student Section podcast who are doing a sports equipment drive that's helping to benefit Brilliant Detroit. We'll speak to the organization itself about all that they're doing in the local area to help children in need and support education, as we've talked about so much in this first segment of the show. That all coming up next on the Megacast across our family of television, radio, and other media outlets. The Megacast returns after this.
Can I ask you a question?
Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith in the studios of our flagship stations out of West Bloomfield Township at Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road. We're also, of course, on Civic Center TV on Lakes FM 89.3 WBLD. We're on 88.1 WBFH, the Biff, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, as well as My Michigan Television, all across the state. On your smartphone, on your laptop, on your smart TV, and on the web. mymitv.com. That is mymitv.com. As we talk to a number of interesting guests from across different platforms all around the state of Michigan, doing great things, not only related to improving people's lives in the COVID-19 pandemic, but even beyond that. And we're pleased to be joined by our first guest this morning. He is the Executive Director of Fleece and Thank You. Nicholas Kristock joins us now on the Megacast. Nicholas, thanks for being with us today.
Hey there, how's it going?
Going pretty well. How are you, and how's the team over at Fleece and Thank You?
Oh, just fantastic. Really appreciative that you're having us on today. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate having you on. Love the name. Explain to me, what does Fleece and Thank You do in our community?
For sure. Fleece and Thank You is the state's largest consistent service provider of colorful fleece blankets for all pediatric inpatients and hospital units across the state. So we partner with every single children's hospital unit, all 22 in the state of Michigan, in an attempt to make 30,000 fleece blankets every year. Every single blanket we deliver also carries a video message from the person who made it to the patient that receives it. And through our technology, the patient can then send a thank you message back to the blanket maker, bringing it full circle.
So 30,000 blankets a year, that's no small feat. Is this being ran sort of in like a warehouse scenario? Is it all volunteer-made blankets? I mean, who are making these 30,000 blankets a year? That's a lot. I would think it's a great pace for just regular people who are volunteering their time to cover that.
Yeah, Fleece and Thank You has a 6,000 square foot facility in Farmington Hills, Michigan, 3 full-time staff members, 2 part-time. And we work with about 80,000 people a year, talking corporations, businesses, schools, churches, you name it. We're working with 400 plus groups a year to make tons and tons of blankets and video messages, package them up, take them through our quality control process, and then deliver them to one of our hospital partners.
We're joined by Nicholas Kristock. He's the founder and executive director of Fleece and Thank You with us today on the Megacast. And you are the founder of Fleece and Thank You. When did you find this organization, and what sparked this idea that and then ultimately led you to bring this to fruition?
I'm a big believer in asking questions. I think if you're lost in life, don't know where you're going, just ask a ton of questions and you can find your way. And I used to live in Australia, moved back to Michigan in 2015. And as I was landing home, I got this text message from my twin sister who was in pediatric oncology at Mott Children's Hospital. And she said, Nick, when you get a second, can you make a blanket for a kid in the hospital? And I started asking questions. Well, how many blankets do you need? How often do you need them? And her answers back to me were, we always need blankets. They change the room and we never have enough. And I was scratching my head that one of the best children's hospitals in the country wouldn't have enough of something that they need. So I picked up the phone that day, October 1st, 2015. I called every hospital in the state and everyone gave me the same answers. They said, Nick, we always need blankets, change the room, never have enough. And I said, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life, but I know we can start this. Let's just figure out how many kids go into the hospital every year, and let's make that many blankets. In our great state of Michigan, that's around 30,000 kids a year. So we have that mission to make 30,000 fleece blankets every single year. And more than just that comfort and color, we know how badly kids in the hospital need connection. And that's where that video message piece comes into play.
We're joined by Nicholas Kristock on the Megacast. He's the executive director and the founder of Fleece and Thank You. So you mentioned a few times those video messages. When people are making are the people that are making the blankets in your facilities or the volunteers, are they making that as they're sending that out, or is that communication sparked after the initial exchange of these blankets?
Yeah, it's definitely a common question because this is, unique technology to what anyone has seen in philanthropy. And so, spoiler alert, we don't tape a DVD to the blankets. We actually make it really easy. After you're done making your blanket, you just take your cell phone. You can take a video on that, as many takes as you like. You're going to upload it on our website, and our website's going to give you back a code. On every single Fleece and Thank You blanket, we have a special video message patch on it. You'll just handwrite your code right on your video message patch. On our side, we review and approve all those videos. Then that blanket goes to Chloe in the hospital. She uses that code to unlock your video, and then she's able to send a video, picture, or written message back. We approve it on our side, and you get an email saying patient sent you a response.
We're joined by Nicholas Kristock, the founder and executive director of Fleece and Thank You on the Megacast all across the state of Michigan on our family of television, radio, and other media outlets. And that's so important, having those messages, too, and having that communication beyond just somebody made me this blanket, somebody cared enough to provide me with this warmth and this comfort while I'm in a spot that's definitely uncomfortable and that can be lonely. But having that person-to-person interaction, especially now in the age that we're in with the COVID-19 pandemic and how much that's also been shut down just beyond the normal realm, it becomes so much more important. And from your experience, having run this organization, having been involved in sparking those conversations and those new relationships between those making the blankets and those kids receiving the blankets, have those relationships sustained themselves? Do these volunteers who are providing this warmth and comfort to these kids, do they continue to have that communication with these families afterward? And how important are those interactions tend to be beyond when the children are, of course, in those hospitals?
Yeah, probably something we've all learned in the last 14 months is just how important it is to us to belong to something, to a community, to others, how important it is to connect. And for these kids, they go into the hospital, and for the first week or two, they're celebrities and calls and visits and messages. And then that kind of all drops off, and it drops off quick. And they're still inside that room feeling like the world outside has forgotten about them. So when we deliver that video message, it's Nick's message coming into the room, and it's a reminder to them that I still matter to the world outside, and I need to continue to fight to get back to that world outside these four walls. And we've seen some incredible connections made between community members and kids in the hospital. We've seen parents who have made blankets with their work, and 3 months later, their child goes in and receives a blanket from the event that they made blankets at. We've seen schools make blankets, and months later, one of their students goes in and blankets from their school event happen to make it to the bed of that patient. We've seen people connect. We've set people up, blanket makers to recipients, when they both want to take that next step and meet. There's some amazing stories and connections that have come out of this video message piece. Makes it a really special and important part of our work.
We're joined by Nicholas Kristock. He is the founder and executive director of Fleece and Thank You with us on the Megacast. And Nicholas, when did you start this organization? Because you gave us the origins of it, but how long has this been going on?
Yeah, founded in October of 2015. And so coming up in 2 months, we'll turn 6 years old.
And in that time, I know you've mentioned earlier, about 30,000 blankets are made each and every year. Do you have an estimate over the almost 6 years now that your organization has been in operation, just how many kids have received blankets?
Yeah, we're up into the hundreds of thousands now, which is really special and a testament to the community of Michigan. We get, like I said, 80,000 pairs of hands a year that help with this effort to make this a consistent service. And I really believe, and where we all believe on the team here that we're going, is Michigan will be the first state to figure out how you blanket every single hospital bed. And we will take that playbook and expand regionally and nationally, where in the region we need 151,000 blankets. Across the country, we need just south of 1 million blankets a year, so that every child, every time, no matter what time of year, what hospital they're in, they're staying overnight. There's a colorful fleece blanket and video message of support waiting on the bed for them when they start that treatment journey.
Nicholas Kristock joins us today on the Megacast. He is the founder and executive director of Fleece and Thank You. You can find more on the organization on their website, fleeceandthankyou.org. And Nicholas, as you're nearing year 6 of running this organization, let's travel back a little bit, because you have a bit of an interesting background. You are a native of Novi, an Oakland University grad where you played D1 soccer. You moved back into the United States after playing professional soccer in Australia for a couple of years. So my question for you, having had such a big background in athletics, having had such a interesting background, what led you into nonprofit work?
When I was in Australia, I had a lot of free time on my hands, and the beach is only so exciting. And so I started using that free time volunteering, and I started volunteering in 4 major charities that worked with kids in the hospital and 1 major nonprofit that served our homeless friends on the street. And philanthropy, I became obsessed with it, truthfully. And so when I moved back to Michigan, I was ready to move on from soccer, and I knew that philanthropy, charity, nonprofit, social impact was where my fit was. And selfishly, I said, I've got to make, my stake here, and this is what my purpose is, and this is where I need to be.
Nicholas Kristock joins us, the executive director and the founder of Fleece and Thank You, as in November, it'll be 6 years of their service to kids all throughout our community, all throughout the state of Michigan, providing blankets and comfort, not only in the form of blankets, but also in the form of well wishes from people who are volunteering their time to provide that comfort to these kids. And so on that note, Nicholas, how do people get involved with this? And how do they get the materials? How do they get the blankets to you? What do they need to do to provide their own form of this comfort to these kids in hospitals?
We have made getting involved in supporting children in the hospital as easy as it can possibly be. From the comfort of your own home, from inside your business, wherever your group meets or doesn't meet, you can order blanket kits from 1 to thousands right on the Fleece and Thank You website. Those can ship, again, right to your front door, your business, etc. We can get together on a video call, make those together. You can make those individually with your family over Thanksgiving or the holidays. And then those blankets come back to our facility. They go through a quality control process that involves a hospital-grade washing and drying unit, getting them to be 99.999% germ-free. We package that up and deliver your blanket and video message to the next hospital and bed in the state of Michigan that needs its comfort. So we've made it really easy. You can order your kits right at fleeceandthankyou.org. If you're someone who's looking to get involved, just do a little bit more. This is as easy as it's going to come. You can do it right from your own home.
And what's the reaction from the kids when they're receiving these blankets and then when they're receiving those messages too? And then over time, as those kids are interacting with this blanket, as they're experiencing the harrowing experience of being in a hospital as it is for anybody, but let alone a child, what is their reaction to receiving this gift just out of the goodness of another person's heart?
If you put yourself in that situation, it's a diagnosis you don't understand. It's a hectic day, and you're walked into this room that you don't want to be in. Plain white sheets, dark beige wallpaper, but then sitting there right on the bed is this rolled up piece of color. And you look at it, you open it up, and you realize it's a nice, big, comfy blanket. You wrap yourself around it, and those kids instantly feel that comfort. You see that smile, you see the color light up their eyes, and for the parents, then they get to watch that video message. For them, they often tell us, when we saw that blanket on the bed, it was truly the first good piece of news we'd had all day. It was the first reason we had to believe that there could be some hope here, that things were going to be okay. When they watch that video message, for many of them, it's their first laugh or smile that day. And it's a reminder to them that they can do this.
We're joined by Nicholas Kristock. He's the executive director and the founder of Fleece and Thank You. You can find more information on their website, fleeceandthankyou.org. And your organization also has an affiliation, interestingly enough, with Lay's potato chips. What is that affiliation, and how did that come to be?
So I think it was two summers ago, Lay's reached out to us, and they were identifying just smile makers around the country. And so they picked, I think it was a top 30 smile maker group. And we were all each featured on hundreds of millions of bags of potato chips, where our smile was on the front of the bag and our story was on the back. It was really huge for us as far as an awareness campaign, and a testament, to all the support, the many people that make us possible, that someone as big as Lay's has, called us a smile maker. And that's exactly what we intend to keep on doing.
We're joined by Nicholas Kristock, the executive director and the founder of Fleece and Thank You, with us today on the Megacast. And Nicholas, you have a history of working in nonprofits and currently running this organization to create 30,000 blankets a year for these kids and to distribute them. Not only does it take a gargantuan effort of volunteer work, but you also said you have 3 full-time employees. You're also doing a lot of legwork of this organization as well. In terms of donations, beyond just the blankets for these kids, what else is needed for your organization to continue to provide this incredible service to children who are in hospitals all throughout the state?
Yeah, we partner a ton with corporations or large groups to fund some of our fabric up front, to fund a lot of, the different inventory types of implications that comes with housing and distributing 30,000 blankets a year. So there's some really neat ways that we can get corporations, larger groups involved beyond blanket making, and just promote their brand and go together into the hospital to support these kids. We're always looking for big and small things. Eagle Scouts are a big one. We love having Eagle Scout projects. So anything from the small classroom all the way up to the corporation of thousands, we have a way to engage with the group.
And these materials, they're not cheap either to create blankets that are substantial for these kids. Are people also able to donate materials to your organization if they have either some extras or if they just want to go out and provide something that is going to go to good use in our community?
Yeah, we do always accept materials donations for sure. Hospitals are very specific now, to the point where the blanket kits that we produce in our warehouse are exactly the size, shape, and specs that they want. So we do always prefer that someone's using our kits. We do absolutely accept donations of materials and make sure that we can turn that into a blanket kit and get it onto a hospital bed.
Nicholas Kristock with us. He's the executive director and the founder of Fleece and Thank You. Find more information on the website, fleeceandthankyou.org. And Nicholas, just another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else that would be important for our audience to know about your organization, or anything else interesting that you believe would be good for us to know?
Yeah, it's one of our more untold stories, but early on we saw that the back end process of Fleece and Thank You had a lot of simple and repeatable tasks. And so going back 5 years now, we've engaged with multiple different community partners that have young adults and adults with different cognitive and physical impairments that come to our warehouse 3 days a week. And we have a workforce development program where they're actually helping with all the back end processes of Fleece and Thank You, the cutting of the fabric, the heat pressing of the patch, the folding, the rolling, the bagging, the quality control. They're really integral in all parts of the process here at the office. And that's a really huge part of what we do, because we honestly couldn't do what we do on a production and manufacturing and distribution side without that support and that workforce development program that's so key.
Nicholas Kristock with us on the Megacast. He is the executive director and the founder of Fleece and Thank You. And Nicholas, before we let you go, I just want to get the backstory. How did you come up with the name and choose the name of Fleece and Thank You for this organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was just, as I was talking to my sister, learning about the blankets, I realized blankets, were fleece. And I was just writing down all the words that rhymed with fleece, just to kind of iterate on the idea, and end up writing down this phrase, please and thank you. And I just stared at it and said, please and thank you. Okay, Fleece and Thank You. It makes a lot of sense. We deliver a fleece blanket, and there's that thank you message that can come back to the person that makes it. and we had a winner.
Nicholas Kristock with us, Executive Director and founder of Fleece and Thank You. Thanks a lot for being with us today.
Thank you so much for helping us share our story.
Appreciate it. You can find more information on Fleece and Thank You on their website, fleeceandthankyou.org. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll transition from nonprofits to restaurants. We'll speak with the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to have an impact on our hotels and on our restaurants, especially now with the uptick in cases that we've seen with Delta variant. We'll get more information from the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. On the other side of this break, you're listening and watching to the Oakland County Megacast.
Here's one more reason to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It's your shot to win. Anyone 18 years or older in Michigan vaccinated between December 1st, 2020 and July 30th, 2021 is now eligible to win millions in cash prizes, including $1 million jackpots and $50,000 daily prizes. And vaccinated students could win thousands in college scholarships. For eligibility details and to enter, go to mishottowin.com.
Trevor Project is sharing how you can support LGBTQ youth who may be at risk.
It's simple. Just show them that you care. C-A-R-E. Connect. If you noticed any warning signs of suicide from someone you know, reach out to them.
Ask. Ask directly. Are you thinking about killing yourself? It might be challenging, but talking about suicide is proven to reduce risk.
Respond. If they open up to you about their suicidal ideation, honor that trust by responding with compassion and empathy.
Empower. Talking openly is a great first step, but now you can empower them with the information and the support they need to improve their situation.
Learn more about how you can show them you care and help prevent LGBTQ youth suicide. Visit trvr.org/care.
To Sofia and Gabriel, even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith in the studios of our stations at Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM in West Bloomfield Township. In addition, we're also on the radio on 88.1 WBFH, the Biff out of Bloomfield Hills, and on TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, a service of the Birmingham Area Cable Board. Find us online, civiccentertv.com, facebook.com/civiccentertv15, and facebook.com/LakesFM. And on My Michigan TV, you can learn more information about My Michigan TV or My at mymitv.com, where you can watch the Megacast each and every day live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, as well as other special Michigan programming from creators all throughout the state of Michigan. My Michigan TV available online, on your smart TV, and on your smartphone as well. And find more information, of course, again, mymitv.com. And we have, of course, plenty of information that we're coming in with each and every day from 10 a.m. to 12 noon here on the Megacast as we continue to go through the COVID-19 pandemic and play the balancing game of keeping the community safe with also moving life forward and trying to save businesses, trying to save people's livelihoods, especially in industries that have been hard hit by the effects of COVID-19 beyond just the virus itself. And to talk more about that issue on the front of hotels and on restaurants, we're pleased to be joined once again by the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, John McNamara, with us on the Megacast. John, thanks for being back with us.
Thanks for having me. Hope everyone's having a good Monday so far.
Yeah, you as well. So at this present time, restaurants are still open at full capacity. It's been that way for well over a month now, almost 2 months now, as we're approaching the month of September after that July 1st full reopening. What is the status of those restaurants? Are we starting to see a comeback of sorts in their numbers and their bottom line, or are they kind of still in the same place they were really at the beginning of July?
No, we're starting to see a comeback there. I mean, their largest challenge right now, one would be, consistent staff. Second would be the supply chain is still very, very backlogged, and that's causing prices. And then third is just sort of this, misnomer that this industry is 100% back to where it was in a pre-COVID world, and that's just simply not true.
So it's not back 100%. It has the ability to operate at regular capacity, but that's just capacity. That's just people inside the doors. So right now, for most of these restaurants, whether they are the small mom and pop restaurants or they're the chain franchises, what does 100% in this current moment look like for the majority of these restaurants?
100% looks like you're running a limited menu, but most importantly, you're running a very limited staff program. I mean, the odds that the person who served you, brunch yesterday was working a double, probably worked a double Saturday, and is probably working a double today. So they are incredibly thin on staff. A lot of them have a very, very dedicated team who want to be there and are doing their best to be there. But, you can only push people so far to whereas you're going to burn them out. So we're still seeing a lot of places who will choose to close a day or two, have limited hours, have limited menus, and are still trying to just do the best they can in what is still a very uncertain world right now.
I mentioned a little bit coming out of the break. I talked a bit about finding that balance and maintaining that balance. And I feel like that's something that's got to be very important for these restaurants right now on the staffing front, because while you need to keep up with the business that's coming in, with the increased amount of people that can come into your doors each and every day and deal with the situations on the front lines, knowing that you're already short-staffed, you got to kind of have that balance there where you're providing the service that you need to provide for your customers to keep them coming back through the doors, but also not overworking your employees to the point where they are leaving the job because it's so hard to fill those positions. How are these businesses, especially the mom and pops that don't have necessarily don't have the name recognition and that kind of support, which is really all they get in that support from the big chains, how are they managing that while also balancing the need to keep their bottom line strong?
It's hard, and we're heading into college football season and kids coming back to school, and that's just going to put more people in these areas. Now, the mom and pops in general have a more loyal customer base and sort of a bit of understanding. You're seeing the bigger chains. For example, Buffalo Wild Wings, I was in one on Friday last week, and they're going to start making it so if you download the app, you can check out on your phone, right? And when you're done, and you can check out and go. I think you're going to see more options like that where technology is going to help relieve this burden. But eventually, hopefully, staffing will get somewhat back to where it was pre-COVID, but also the supply chain will catch up down the line, and you won't have a massive shortage on chicken wings, and you won't have beef prices be sky high. In fact, right now it's cheaper to buy beef it's cheaper to buy beef. Sorry, more expensive to buy beef than it is lobster.
Wow.
Lobster's cheap right now.
Wow. And in terms of that, because there is so much need across the board for restaurants, not just in Michigan, but across the U.S., and issues in the supply chain in one area of the U.S. affect the supply chain in the other area of the U.S., regardless of what is the regular livestock of the time in Michigan or Nebraska or in Texas or anywhere else. So in that sense, as you have these mom and pops, these smaller businesses that are family run, that have really for years had to keep money tight to run a business that can support their family, versus these larger chains that tend to have their systems in place. Right now, with the supply chain issues that are in place, is that competition having a greater effect on those smaller mom and pop kind of restaurant businesses than the larger chains, or is it kind of more of an egalitarian issue?
No, it's impacting the smaller independent operators more, simply because a lot of these places it's by volume. We've seen a couple different places around, Lansing, East Lansing, where I live, who have just taken, I keep going back to chicken wings, but this is the prime example right now of disruption in the market, who have simply taken chicken wings off their menu for the time being. You've seen Wing Zone has, pivoted to Wing and Thigh Zone. You're starting to see more chicken thighs on menus in a lot more places, because those are more readily available than wings. So it's impacting the smaller ones more, but that doesn't mean that, Buffalo Wild Wings is not hurting just as bad. And in some ways more, because when you go to B-Dubs, you're going for wings, most likely. So And, we've heard cases of people running, B-dubs at times running out for, periods of time.
We're joined by John McNamara. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs with the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, joining us today on the Megacast. And on that similar note, those staffing issues that we talked about earlier are also affecting across the board these small mom and pops and these franchises and these larger chains that have that name recognition. But a lot of these businesses in other industries, including in the restaurant industry, as they're trying to attract staffers and trying to retain staff members as well, they're providing greater incentives and providing better hourly pay as well in some cases. Are you finding that these smaller mom and pops, similar to the supply chain issue, are having a greater issue retaining employees and keeping employees and attracting new employees versus these other chains, simply because there's less of a war chest of money necessarily, for lack of better terms, in place for them?
That's been decently egalitarian across the board. Okay. Of it's really tough to get. I mean, I had one board member who has 6 restaurants. He had 150 interviews scheduled and 6 people showed up for the actual interview. I have members who are offering people $50 simply to fill out an application. So, maybe they can get that phone number and convince you to try to go to work. And I want to point out that the hotels are being hit just as hard on the staffing issue as the restaurants are. We just had our summer board meeting at Traverse City, and that staff did a great job, but everyone was wearing 4 or 5 hats. The person who checked me in was pouring wine at dinner and was cleaning rooms, and that was a senior management at the hotel. This was not someone who typically does one thing or the other. So it is all hands on deck across the industry, and you're seeing owners, managers, general managers, assistant managers who are bussing tables and pouring wine simply because that's what they have to do to try to get through this.
So let's talk more about the hotel side, because we always seem to focus on the restaurant side. That seems to be what captures the headlines, what captures the stories in the news media when related to this industry, or at least to what the coverage of your organization is. And at this time, you mentioned the staffing issues are definitely in place also at hotels. How has their overall management been affected beyond just the staffing, or including the staffing too, in our current times with COVID-19?
So yeah, a lot of the times you're seeing, if you're going to be there for 3 or 4 days, you're probably only, they're not cleaning rooms every day for sure. Now it's every other or maybe every 3rd day is when they're going in and cleaning rooms, simply because they don't have the staff to do it right now. They want to make sure people are checked in, are getting there. If you need more towels or you need something like that, they're happy to provide it. But, someone coming in and changing the sheets and making the bed in most cases is not happening every single day. And that's simply just they don't have the person power to make it happen.
And is that affecting the ability for these hotels to have greater availability there for people to come in, especially as people continue to travel and we have big events going on in various places throughout the state of Michigan?
No, it's absolutely making it harder, and it's just making it harder because you have a pent-up demand for travel, largely due to, in 2020, there was very little of it available. And everyone wants to get out and everyone wants to travel this year, but there's just sometimes not the staff to make it happen. Especially in northern Michigan is being especially hard hit by this as well. In the best of times, staffing in northern Michigan is hard to do, and these past 2 years have been even harder up north. So my hats are off to everyone up north who's doing their best to make it work, and with a tourism season that part of the state desperately needs to make it through.
Yeah, our thoughts definitely with those businesses up in the UP, especially where we saw in the recent census data that was released that in the last 10 years, many counties up in the UP and in northern Michigan and northern lower peninsula have had significant changes in population. It has not grown. It has definitely taken a dip, and that doesn't help in a time where it's already tough enough to find and retain staff. So on that note, John McNamara, Vice President of Government Affairs with the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, what should people expect when they're going to hotels in this time, because there is a short staffing situation? You mentioned that the rooms are probably not going to be cleaned out every day. It'll probably be every other day or every few days instead of every day. But how else is their experience being impacted by the current situation that these businesses are dealing with?
I mean, they're going to do their best to make your experience as best as possible. But with limited, with limited staff, there's only so much they can do. So, the gym will probably still be there, but it might not be staffed. The pool will still be there, but it might not be staffed. If it's busy, there may be a lifeguard. But it's just a group of people and group of very dedicated, hardworking people who are trying to kind of keep up with demand. And my ask is that hotel, restaurant, event, please just be patient with the staff that is there. They're tired. They're working really, really, really hard, and they're doing the best to give you the best experience possible. But it's as I've said before, and I'll say it again on this show and many others, it's just going to take patience on everyone's part. And all I ask of you is be as patient as you can and understand they are doing the best they can. But times are still tough in the industry.
We're joined by John McNamara. He is the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. And as we continue forward in this pandemic and we continue to have the recovery sort of hit a snag in some sorts because of the current situation that we're having. How are restaurants and even hotels at this moment in time, how are they adjusting to the current situation given the slight uptick that we've had and the moderate uptick now at this point in COVID-19 cases with the Delta variant in recent weeks?
So you're going to see a lot more staff are already wearing masks, and I think you're going to see going forward even more staff wearing masks. I think you're going to see some places posting signs strongly encouraging you to wear a mask while inside. It's not going to shock me if people are going to start asking for reservations or call ahead seating in some way, shape, or form. But I think you're just going to see them try to start to plan in advance a little bit more, just so they can be ready and they can provide service. So, if you're trying to go out with, 10, 12 people, I would call ahead and just let them know and make sure they can do it. And accommodate that. But you're going to see them plan, prepare, maybe space some tables. But, pre-COVID, their goal was to serve you safely. During COVID, their goal was to serve you safely. And in a post-COVID world, their goal is going to be to serve you safely. That's what this industry does. It's what we've always done, and it's what we'll continue to do. We just are going to have to do it differently.
Yeah, frustration definitely is amounting, and impatience is definitely amounting as this pandemic does continue on and grow in its timeline. And we're seeing that in other places in the U.S. Of course, today, New York City is the first major city in the U.S. to require proof of vaccination in order to dine indoors. Are you expecting in the coming weeks and the coming months that we may see some restaurants and some parts of the industry that begin to put similar requirements in place? It's not going to happen necessarily at the state level or at major city level. We haven't had any indication of that as of late here in the state of Michigan. But given what's happening in other places, given that there seems to be less of an apprehension across the board to put these mandates in place, are you expecting that the customers may see some restaurants that begin to say, we need proof of vaccination for you to enter indoors?
I think so. There's already been one more nightclub setting in Detroit that requires proof of vaccination for that. You're starting to see at some shows and some concerts that you either have to have your vaccination or you have to take a rapid COVID test at the door to get in. So no, I think you will see some businesses who simply choose to say, we definitely want you to come in and have a good time, but in order to come in and enjoy yourself, we need to see a vaccination card. And that's every individual business's right as a business owner. If they choose to do that, that's their choice. I agree with you. I don't see it happening at the state level, like you've seen in other states. But I think you definitely will see, individual business choose to do it. And I think as you move into college football season, I think you'll see, I think that's probably where that uptick might start, is starting with college football season and some businesses saying, love to have you, but got to show proof.
John McNamara with us on the Megacast, the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Just another minute with you, John, before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else that would be important for our audience to know that you and your organization would like to say today?
No, we appreciate everyone, continuing to dine out, take out, whichever way you're doing it, and supporting the industry. And we ask that you keep doing it. But as I said earlier, it's please be patient. They're working really, really hard. And I look forward to a day when this is truly over. I think this is a bump that everyone was expecting, and it's a bump that we'll get through. But it's going to take just more creativity and more patience.
We've got through it before, and we'll get through it again. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate having you on. John McNamara, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Again, be patient, take your time, and understand that our restaurants and our hotels are doing the best that they can. They're putting forth 100% effort to keep you safe, to keep their environment safe, but also to run their business. And it's not exactly an easy time for them, just like it's not easy for anyone else in any other industry, whether it's you at your job, whether it's you dealing with your Greater family, West Bloomfield, or it's here in our studios as well. We have our own struggles all throughout our communities and in every industry. So patience, and all across the board, whether it's in a hotel, whether it's in a restaurant, whether it's in your grocery store, whether it's at the bank, or whether it's in your own office and in your own home. We absolutely have to practice that as we're going forward. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and 88.1 WBFH, Bloomfield Hills. And now that we're legal on the radio, we'll go into the second hour of the show. And when we come back, we'll be speaking with Deputy Police Chief of West Bloomfield, Curt Lawson, as well as Keisha Williams, dispatch manager at the police department's 911 communications center. That and more coming up next on the Megacast.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Here's one more reason to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It's your shot to win. Anyone 18 years or older in Michigan vaccinated between December 1st, 2020 and July 30th, 2021 is now eligible to win millions in cash prizes, including $1 million jackpots and $50,000 daily prizes. And vaccinated students could win thousands in college scholarships. For eligibility details and to enter, go to mishottowin.com.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith in the studios of our flagship stations, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. We're also on community television in the Birmingham Bloomfield area on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, or BAMA. That channel, as well as Civic Center TV, Comcast 15, and AT&T Channel 99. You can also find us on the web all throughout the local area and across the world. CivicCenterTV.com. Click on our Watch Live link. Facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and Facebook.com/LakesFM. And on My Michigan Television, My Michigan TV. That is MYMITV.com. And you can also download the MyTV app on your smartphone, on your smart TV, and more. And view Michigan television content from all throughout the state, a number of different creators, including us here at Civic Center TV and at the Megacast, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as we continue to talk to a number of people here in Oakland County and across the state of Michigan about issues that are impacting our community, not only related to COVID-19, but well and far beyond. And we've made an effort throughout this pandemic to keep in contact with our friends on the front lines, including those over at the West Bloomfield Police Department. We're pleased to be joined now by Dispatch Manager Kecia Williams, as well as Deputy Police Chief Curt Lawson on the Megacast. Kecia, Curt, thanks for being with us today.
You're welcome. Great to see you, Tyler.
Yeah, good to see you too as well. So Kecia, let's start with you as the Dispatch Manager over at the Police Department's 911 Communications Center. Tell us a little bit about your career and how those experiences that you've had previously in your career helped you find success in your current role with the Police Department.
Well, I would say it all began in the military. I was in communications there, and it just translated over into the civilian side of being a public safety dispatcher. I've been a public safety dispatcher for many, many years. And with that, I grew up through the ranks, so to speak, holding as many positions as I could throughout. And by doing so, it helped me to see and understand what it is that dispatchers need and want. It's a difficult occupation, especially since it's shift work, and not everyone is cut out to do shift work. So having an understanding of that has helped a great deal. And seeing how life unfolds with people, it helps to have a good understanding of people and life itself, I would say.
An organization has to be vitally important in a situation like that because there is so much to manage. You're not only pointing our officers and our other first responders in the right direction, but you're also collecting information that is coming in from people in the community at their worst hour, at their at an absolute high stress time that they need help right away, and they're trying to get all this information out to you. And so not only collecting all that, but also managing your staff and making sure that they're in their best position possible to do their job as best as possible. That has to come with some major organization. So what changes have you made from your past experience and from your experience communicating with their dispatchers and with the leaders in the police department in your time with West Bloomfield?
I would say dispatchers are, we talk about unsung heroes, and you're really talking about dispatchers. They're never seen. They're here 24/7. They're never the voice out front, always the voice behind. And I think that working at this department, they have helped with bringing the dispatchers to the forefront for people to see who they are and know what they are doing. And I would also say one of those things is also we've engaged in emergency medical and emergency fire dispatching, which has helped the dispatchers to be able to keep up with the community in terms of we have a lot of medicals here in West Bloomfield area in the Tri-Cities. So having a software program that actually helps them with their calls has been really great for the community and for the dispatchers.
Kecia Williams joins us on the Megacast alongside Curt Lawson. She is the dispatch manager of the West Bloomfield Police Department 911 Communications Center, and Curt Lawson is the deputy police chief of the West Bloomfield Police Department. And Kecia, let's talk more about the impact of technology on first responders in the modern age, especially over the last several years. How much greater of a role has technology played in making dispatch more efficient and more effective so that the police department, the fire department, and so on can provide better service to the people of West Bloomfield and the surrounding area?
Technology is at the forefront of what we do now. We have CAD, which is computer-aided dispatch systems, and that integrates with GIS technology. It helps us to have a more valid location meter for where citizens are when they need assistance. There's the ABLs in the vehicle to help us to know where cars are at. Technology has also gone to texty, where you can text to 911. That's the basis coming from Oakland County. We are hoping in the future, near future, to also have that on our side. There's just so much. Even as we speak now, there's some states that are beta testing videos where you can send videos to 911 in reference to things that are happening. So technology is definitely at the forefront of where we're at right now.
We're joined by Kecia Williams, the dispatch manager for West Bloomfield Police Department's 911 Communications Center. We're also joined by Deputy Police Chief of the West Bloomfield Police Department, Curt Lawson. And Curt, we've spoken already a bit about Keisha's experience and how her leadership has impacted her department at the police department, the 911 Communications Center so far, but across the board in the police department, especially now as there have been so many more calls and for accountability of our police departments, how much more important across the board, whether it be those that are managing officers or those that are in the dispatch center and other areas of the department, how much more important now than ever is it to have quality leadership on your team in a police department, not only to better serve the community, but to make sure that you are training your officers and training your other employees to be better servants of the community?
That's a great question, Tyler. And obviously, I think leadership, management, and law enforcement is essential, especially in this day and age. And I think we've had those things in place here at West Bloomfield for as long as I've been here for 26 years. As far as the communications team and our dispatch center, Lieutenant Tilley, Chief Pat, and myself, we oversaw the dispatch center for a number of years, but we really wanted to take that dispatch center up to another level. And we were simply not capable of doing that by ourselves. We needed someone to come in that had the experience, that had the knowledge to build a team, to bring that technology in, that had all of those leadership skills to take us to the next level. And that's where, hats off to Keisha. She has done a fantastic job, and we have reached that next level. We continue to build on the building blocks that she started, and she'll continue to see through into the future. So we're very much looking forward to, in the next year or two, getting a new state-of-the-art dispatch center, continuing to attract the very best talent, and putting a very good leadership team in place, which will be overseen by Kecia Williams.
So Curt, just continuing on the topic of leadership, because leadership in a general sense has a number of different qualities, but those qualities sometimes don't translate as well from one area of life to another. So in terms of working in the police department, whether you are the dispatch manager such as Keisha is to your right, or you are Lieutenant Tilley or Chief Patton or so on, or other officers that are out in the front lines each and every day, especially in modern policing, what makes for a good leader that ends up translating to being a quality police officer and police employee?
Well, I think it starts with integrity. You have vision and the ability to build a team. It can't be a one-person show. You have to do it together. And once you attract that talent, you tell them where you want to go. You give them the tools to get there. And we've seen it day in and day out with Miss Williams. We get to where we want to go. We've gotten to that next level. Just absolutely outstanding job by her. And that's why I wanted to have her on today, to kind of showcase the incredible talent that we brought in here. And she'll tell you, it's just not about Keisha. It's about the incredible team that she has put together. And they do an outstanding job day in and day out.
So Keisha, let's continue on that now. We're joined by Kecia Williams, dispatch manager at the West Bloomfield Police Department 911 Communications Center, as well as Curt Lawson, deputy police chief of the West Bloomfield Police Department. So we've talked more on a broad sense about what is needed to be a quality leader in a police department across the board in the modern age. In terms of dispatchers, Keisha, what makes for a quality dispatcher?
Oh my goodness. I would say for a quality dispatcher, someone who has strong self-control, emotionally wise, as far as being able to handle the many calls that come in, the needs of the first responders that we sent out. So I would definitely say strong emotional self-control, the ability to be empathetic, to be sensitive and patient with those that are calling in for assistance. All those things are needed.
We're joined by Kecia Williams. She's the dispatch manager of the West Bloomfield Police Department 911 Communications Center, alongside Curt Lawson, Deputy Police Chief, with us today on the Megacast. And in a typical day, what does a dispatcher experience?
Well, I'm going to first say there is no typical day in the life of a dispatcher, because you have no idea what is going to happen next. And in today's world, that can be anything at any given moment. So while you may come in and you greet your partners, those that are going off duty, you're coming in, you share what has happened, but in that moment, anything again can happen, and you must be prepared. We are always ready for whatever will come next. It's oftentimes you get the same types of calls, but then there are those times when you get things that you have no idea. You have no idea. It's the training that you have, the tools that have been given to you that will help you to get through the situation and move on to the next.
You need to be able to be cool and calm, as you said earlier on, and you need to be able to manage stressful situations, but also just the general stress of the volume of calls, of the stresses of regular life in the age that we're in, especially during the pandemic. What are some of the coping skills or the methods that are most effective for your dispatchers to be able to manage that stress and continue to provide quality service to the community, but also not have the stresses and the anxieties of the job that are just a natural part of it take a toll on them personally?
Well, actually, I would have to say it is what this department has recently implemented that has helped the dispatchers a great deal, as well as I do believe everyone within the police department, of knowing that you have people that can help you through those times. And I think Deputy Chief Lawson would be the best person to speak on that.
Okay. Yeah, Curt, anything to say on that matter?
Well, something that we've seen in law enforcement for many years is that, we're kind of portrayed as these tough guys and girls, and that we don't need to ask for help. And there's this certain stigma of asking for help in law enforcement. And we're really trying to break down that barrier. We created a peer support team here of informal leaders that are specifically trained, they're specially trained to be able to sit down and listen to people that might be going through troubled times, to give them coping skills. We also have a psychologist that liaisons with this team. We've started to implement debriefs. So if we have a very stressful situation or a major incident, that everyone's going to sit down and they're going to talk about what happened, what we did well, what we didn't do so well, talk a little bit about our feelings. So just kind of breaking down the barriers that have been in place in law enforcement for so many years. That's what we're trying to do. And we continue to look for ways where we can bring our people help when they really need it.
We're joined by Curt Lawson, Deputy Police Chief, and Kecia Williams, the Dispatch Manager for the West Bloomfield Police Department 911 Communications Center. And Kecia, just another couple minutes before we'll say goodbye to the two of you today. For those out in the community who hopefully don't need to be making 911 calls very often, if ever, but if and when they come into a situation where they do, to best help our dispatchers provide the best service to those people, but also to the community and to our police and fire departments, what would you suggest that they do to best help the situation on their end?
I would say have patience, remain calm. We understand that what is happening to you is the most critical thing that could be happening. We do understand that, but we also have questions that we need to ask in order to help the first responders. There's safety reasons why we ask some of the questions that we ask. And we just ask that you just be patient and know that the questions are for your benefit to help you.
Well, Kecia, Curt, we appreciate having you on. Just another minute or so before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else that you would like to say today, or any other information that would be important for our audience to know at this time about the police department, about the dispatch center, and so on?
Well, one of the things as a leader I try to do is we want to put the right leadership in place, which we have. We want to bring in the best equipment, which we're going to do and have been doing. but we want to get the very best talent for her team. So we continue to look for people that might be interested in being professional dispatchers. That's someone that has to remain calm, understand the techniques of de-escalation, be able to multitask. But if you're interested, we're certainly interested in you, and reach out to our human resource department or to Keisha, and we'd love to interview you and get you to be part of our team. And I think we have one of the very best teams around, and we continue to get better every day.
Well, we appreciate having both of you on today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
Appreciate having you guys on. Kecia Williams, Dispatch Manager at the West Bloomfield Police Department 911 Dispatch Center, as well as Curt Lawson, Deputy Police Chief for the West Bloomfield Police Department. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side of the break, I'm going to stand up nice and straight. I'm going to keep my arms on the table, both feet on the ground, and I'm going to be very straightforward and nice because we have the Etiquette Guru coming up after this break. And we know we got to stay prim and proper here on the Megacast, as we always do. That and more coming up. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
To Sophia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
For a very, very long time, and with that, it's easy for people to forget how you're supposed to act in public. Well, really, you shouldn't. I think it's unexcusable, but I'm no expertise on that. So here to talk more about how we act in public, etiquette, we are joined by Stacy, Amey, the Etiquette Guru, and my headphones just came undone. So before we get to her, hi, Stacy, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Beautiful. All right, so that is starting off with etiquette. Not the best on-air etiquette, but it's fine. So the first thing I wanted to ask you this morning, actually, tell me, I'm just going to get right into it. What is the number one thing that just drives you insane when it comes to bad etiquette?
People not owning it, just doing it and walking away from it. And it bothers me that they don't even realize their poor manners. That bothers me. And then, of course, they're not apologizing for things when they need to if they're not taking ownership of it.
So give me a story. What first comes to mind when you think of a time? I want an example of a time that something like that happened where someone did something and just had no regard for the situation.
I don't have anything specific off the top of my head except this current situation where people aren't being respectful towards one another. They're just within themselves and not realizing the ramifications of their behaviors and actions. So, just simply people getting too close to other people. And, you can tell if somebody is uncomfortable if they start backing away from you. And there are a lot of cultural considerations. I mean, Americans' space is about 3 feet. That's where we're comfortable. Other cultures, that space varies. So there is that to realize. But if you're someone who's crowding someone and they're backing away from you, read the signs. You can read body language. Back off, and we just need to be, especially right now, so respectful of individuals. And and their choices of what's happening with the vaccine and the masking and this and that. Everyone has their own reasons for doing what they're doing.
So with talking about going back into the office and people being together for the first time in a long time, not necessarily working on Zoom anymore, you come in, you're used to having conversations with your coworkers, talking to people. That's typical practices for the morning, but things might be a little different these days, not even necessarily just because of COVID restrictions, but maybe people are in bad moods. So you walk in, you see your coworkers sitting there. Normally you'd go up and approach. Who's the one that's responsible for kind of reading the room? Do you see, maybe they don't want to talk, so do you just walk away, or do you approach them knowing that they might not want to talk and then they kind of give you the cold shoulder? Who's in the right in that situation, or how do you approach it?
Yes, I think read the room as best you can, but I believe just always be a positive force. If you get shut down, it's not your problem. You approach someone, you're friendly. Just reach out to people. Some people are in a bad way. Going back into the workplace, it's uncomfortable for them. So, seeing a friendly face, or, you don't have to get really close to them, but I say absolutely approach them, say good morning. If you've already said good morning to them and you pass them again, acknowledge them. You can look at them, and if they're looking down, again, it's not your problem. You're trying to reach out to people, but just being friendly and understanding, and you're maybe that person that is leaving the door open. Or you could even say, hey, if you ever want to talk, give me a call or email me or come see me in my office, whatever the case may be. I think just being open with people, because there's a lot of crabby people out there, and it's understandable.
So then with more standard practices, things like holding the door open for the person behind you if you're walking. In a normal world, I would say you always, always, always hold the door for the person behind you. Maybe I'm wrong. You can fill me in on that. But in a COVID world, what does that look like? Is that the standard practice that you should always hold the door for the person behind you, grab handles, stuff like that? Or do you think that the standard for that has changed a little bit?
I hope the standard hasn't changed. We need to get back to what's normal. Yes, please still use your manners, hold doors open. The bottom line is you're washing your hands before you eat or do anything like that. So that's your protection there. We're not going to be able to live in a bubble. So our manners should come back to the surface, because, remember lockdown. So many people were just longing for that personal interaction, and now's our opportunity to ease back into it. And it's going to take easing. I'm not going to say people have PTSD from this, but to some extent, this has been very difficult for people. So getting back to what's normal will bring a certain comfort level. And that's back to our manners, our basic manners. Yes, hold the door open for people. And let's try to get back to some sort of normal. We're doing everything we can to try and shut this virus down.
So let's talk a little bit about indoor dining, going into a restaurant. Definitely something I do often. I'm happy it's something we're able to do. I'm going to call him out here. Our booking producer, Larry and Island, the other night, went out to eat with a couple of his friends, and he told them he was getting there about 15 minutes late. They knew he was getting there late, and when he arrived, they had already ordered their entrees. That's not acceptable, is it?
I disagree with that. Yes, they should have been patient and waited for him, especially since he took the time to tell them, I'm going to be late. That was their mistake. They needed to wait for him.
So in a situation like that, do you think there's a unwritten rule of some sort to how late a person could be before you can go ahead and start ordering? Or maybe could they have ordered a couple appetizers for everyone to share when he got there? What should you do?
Since he took it upon himself to tell them, I'm going to be late, that's one situation. They were wrong in not waiting for him. If you have a question mark and you're not sure what is happening with the person, I say maybe give them 15, 20 minutes, and if they don't show up, I think you can just continue on. Maybe you want to start with appetizers to give them a little bit more time, but that's the person who's late. That's their bad. They should be calling someone and telling them I'm stuck in traffic or what have you, and if they're just a no call and then a no show, that's very rude to the people that are sitting there waiting, and rude to the restaurant to have you just sitting in there drinking water, So yes, I say go ahead and order after 15, 20 minutes if you're not sure what the other person is doing.
How would you say the standard is different with going out to eat with your friends versus first date? I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, let's just jump into it. First dates, what are the biggest things that people need to be aware of? What are things that you just know on a first date you need to be conscious of as much as you want to be comfortable and be yourself? There are definitely certain things that you just gotta be a little more reserved with on a first date, like excusing yourself to go to the bathroom, or, you know, I hope you're never late to a first date, but stuff like that. Just talk a little bit about what first dates should look like from an etiquette perspective.
Yes, best manners, absolutely. You're not wanting to relax really at all, watching your conversations, the tone of them, what you are speaking about, being mindful of your vocabulary, not using a lot of slang, and really just being on your best behavior. And hopefully, if you are out to eat, you have some sort of dining skills or dining etiquette. And that's a good place to, I hate to say it, but you're sizing that person up. Because obviously, if they're eating, you know, like a slob, it's probably not going to get better unless they take it upon themselves to learn about it. So yeah, just being on your best behavior is really, you know, as best you know, just behave yourself.
Right? Okay, so here's this situation. Tell me your wash your alcohol. Well, hey, I mean, if the date's not going well, but all right, so let's say you're on a first date, they're a slob, it's going horrible, and you're like, there is no way I'm fixing this person. This is never happening again. At what point can you find a way to excuse yourself from this date? Like, it's so horrible, you need to get out of there? Or do you have to just wait it out for the first whole date and then never talk to the person again?
I think if you're that uncomfortable and it's really going poorly, I would definitely, if you're at dinner, finish your meal and then take it outside and tell them, you know, you have to leave, and you can make up an excuse. Of course, this is very important. You would never want to post anything on social media about how terrible your date was or anything like that. You don't want to, you know, insult the person that way. But I don't think you have to, maybe your plan was to go to dinner and a movie. You don't have to complete that and go to the movie. If you're uncomfortable and it's not working out, just, you know, you can just say, I don't see this working out. You don't have to play games with the person, and you can walk away.
So what about in a little bit of larger group situations? If I'm out to dinner with, I don't know, 6 of my friends and I have to go to the bathroom, I'm probably not going to announce to the group, hey, everyone, I need to go pee. So do you just get up and leave and not tell anyone? Do you tell the person next to you? How do you approach that in a group situation?
If you have something to do, maybe you need to take a phone call or go use the restroom. Just simply say, excuse me, and leave. They don't need to know the particulars, and you don't have to say anything more than that.
So when it comes to teaching people etiquette, what is normally your approach? How do you think you really ingrain that in someone's mind, the things they need to do? Is it a step-by-step process? Is it over time? Talk to me a little bit about how you do that.
Some of the skills, they are obvious and step-by-step. Here is how you do this. Here is how you are poised and walk and sit down properly, things like that. Other things, yes, it's over time. It's having conversations. It's hearing how they are approaching conversations or the back and forth. I feel like the younger people are at a little bit of a disadvantage. They are so reliant on the way they communicate with their phones that they've lost that personal touch. So their communication ways are questionable, and they need some support. So for them, the people that are a little bit older and know better, it's just kind of pinpointing where they are dropping the ball. Again, it boils down to communication. Some people aren't good at it, but getting some sort of comfort level. And once they are receiving the tools and understanding it, that empowers them, and then they become better communicators. So it's just practice and going back and forth and practicing the skills. If that's what we're doing, you just have to practice these things until they're seamless and you don't have to think about them anymore.
So kind of on another topic, let's talk a little bit about, well, still going out to restaurants, but paying the bill. If you're out with a big group of people, is it, I don't want to use the word disrespectful, but poor etiquette, I guess, to ask for 10 separate checks, or even if it's two people? Do you think if you're on a date, is it the waiter's responsibility to ask about the check situation? Do you assume the guy's paying? Can you not do that? Just talk to me a little bit about different situations with paying the bill and how you should go about that to make sure you're being respectful to everyone.
I think it's helpful if you can communicate with people beforehand. But if it's, there's different situations, maybe you don't ever want to assume, obviously, but if I'm just big on communicating. If you're unsure, you could ask, hey, do you want to go Dutch treat? Does everybody want separate checks? Or do we, maybe be the facilitator? Do you want to just separate the bill when we're finished? I was recently out to dinner, and this was a cute story with people, and I had never met this couple. And this gentleman is a mentor of mine, and I had never met him face to face. And the bill came, and I said, oh, please let us, my husband and I, let us get this. And he said, oh, no. And the funny thing is, I've never heard anybody say this. He literally said, money is no object. And I laughed and thought in my head, okay, well, then you get the bill. I didn't say that, of course. But we ended up just paying each our own. And it wasn't uncomfortable. And it was just that little bit of conversation needed to happen. And then everybody relaxes. I think when you don't communicate, that's when you freeze and are wondering who's paying, what should I do? And then that makes it uncomfortable. So just always open those communication lines, and maybe you just are steadfast. I would like to pay for myself. That's fine. It's not really that offensive if you're really wanting to, or you could say, well, if it's a date, I would like to treat next time, something like that. Or if someone wants to pay and they're adamant about it, you could offer, well, can I leave the tip then? So.
And then another situation that I always kind of think about, especially lately as we're going back into big crowds, concerts, sporting events, stuff like that. Let's say you're walking, you're on your phone, someone bumps into you or something. I hate it more than anything when the person will bump into you and then, they give you that look almost as if you did something wrong, and then they just keep walking. In a situation like that, do you stop and say, I'm so sorry, or what are you supposed to do? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's fine to just give them a dirty look and keep walking. I don't know. You tell me.
No, again, being that positive, nice person, that only harms you when you're like that. So I always just say, oh, excuse me, and just go my own way. I'm not going to get caught up in, wow, that was rude, or, say nothing, or do the old, excuse you, I've heard that, and that's that's kind of silly. So, just excuse me and move on. And it's just like I had someone road raging on me yesterday, and I know there's people that get so worked up about that, and, I was kind of monitoring my own heart rate in that, and I did have a little jump because it was quite aggressive, but I just let it go. You're not going to harm me because of your rage. You can't fix other people. You can only work on what's looking at you in the mirror.
So I was actually going to ask you that. With you being the etiquette guru, you obviously got to be on your best behavior, but are there times that even you're like, really kind of having to bite your tongue, just getting a little heated, wishing you could cross the line a little bit?
Of course. I'm human. I get mad. Absolutely. People are aggravating. So, just as best I can, maintaining myself. But yes, of course.
All right. Well, Stacy, just a couple more minutes with you this morning. One thing I do want to ask you, because I know, especially in today's world, coughing and sneezing is almost unacceptable in public. Normally, you would just, you cough, you sneeze, someone says bless you, but you excuse yourself. Are there situations where you're in a quiet room and you sneeze and you shouldn't say bless you if it's going to be more disruptive, or should you always? What's the right thing to do there?
I guess if it's going to be disruptive, I would stay quiet. That person already feels embarrassed too. So, if it was me doing the sneezing, I would quietly say, excuse me, and I would get up to go wash my hands or, go to the restroom, whatever the case may be. If someone else does it, I'm not going to shoot them a dirty look. These are, bodily functions that are in place. So you can't help it. And if you have to cough, nobody has to freak out. There's still allergy issues and things like that, or they may be getting a cold, or they may be getting COVID, but nobody needs to freak out because they already feel uncomfortable. I remember way back when this first started, I sneezed, and I was in the fruit and vegetable market, and there's a lot of healthy people in there. I've noticed not a lot of coughs and sneezes go on in there, so I felt just like I was like a spotlight flashed on me, but I just looked, I went to the bathroom, and there's nothing you can do, and people shooting you dirty looks is not helpful at all. There's really no call for that. But if you can quietly bless someone, that's always nice.
Well, I agree, and I think people need to remember that even in a pandemic world, we still get the cold, so it's definitely nothing crazy. But is there anything else you want to share this morning, talk to us about before we have to let you go that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. You're new to me, and you've been lovely. It's nice to meet you. I always update everyone. I work on this magazine for kids, so I'll just show you. I don't remember where I left off, but this is issue 10.
Wow. I love the cover art. Do you design that?
Thank you. I don't. Boris Kim, my illustrator, is wonderful. And it's just, this whole thing about just the pandemic and everything, using your manners and etiquette, it's a sneaky way to make you feel happy, because you are helping others, but it's making you feel happy. And it's with this magazine, it's cultivating your own Super Murray inside of you. And that's just the whole thing about manners and etiquette, are to make others feel comfortable whenever you can. So really, I hope people just continue to cultivate that and be nice and positive to other people. Just continue on. This is continuing on, unfortunately, but it's going to come to an end eventually. But let's just keep our manners in mind and be nice to people. Everyone can use some niceness in these days.
You can say that again on repeat. Stacy, thank you so much. It was so nice talking with you this morning and meeting you. So have a great, Wednesday? Rest of your week, weekend, whatever it may be. Thank you so much.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM, our flagship stations on our network of television, radio, and other media outlets throughout the state of Michigan. We're also on Birmingham area municipal access, our Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. Those are our cable television channels for those public stations in southeastern Michigan. We're also on CivicCenterTV.com. You can click on our Watch Live link or view us at the small link at the top of our homepage. We're also on Facebook. Facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and Facebook.com/LakesFM. And as always, we're also joined by My Michigan Television. You can find more information on My Michigan Television or My at MYMITV.com. That's MYMITV.com, and download the app on your smart TV as well as your smartphone and take Michigan content with you wherever you are in the state of Michigan, in the U.S., and all throughout the world. Well, over the course of the pandemic, of course, COVID-19 and the effects of the ways our society has changed has had an impact on a number of different people, but especially on our children. We talk so much about the impact of COVID-19 on the education system, but it's really affecting kids at a young age as well. And there are organizations all throughout the state of Michigan that are working hard day in and day out to help provide some help that can bridge those gaps that are in place. And one of those organizations is Brilliant Detroit. We're joined by its CEO, Cindy Eggleton, now on the Megacast. Cindy, thanks for being with us today.
It's such a pleasure to be here, really and truly. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on the show. For those that are unfamiliar with Brilliant Detroit, what does your organization do?
Brilliant Detroit exists to do what we call create kid success neighborhoods, where kids and families in the middle of neighborhoods in Detroit have everything that they need, belly to 8, in education, health, and family support. And we do that by repurposing houses and creating them as really a hub where we have over 100 programs in them that people can attend.
We're joined by Cindy Eggleton. She is the CEO of Brilliant Detroit with us on the Megacast. And the organization was created in 2015, and from my notes, to provide a quote, radically new approach to kindergarten readiness in neighborhoods. When you say a radically different approach, how are you changing that approach to prepare families for their kids to go into kindergarten, particularly in the neighborhoods?
Yeah, so first off, it's radically new to do it right in the middle of the neighborhoods. We also involve the community. We really believe that neighborhoods and people should be in charge of their future. So we don't go into any neighborhood unless we've been invited in. We hire from the neighborhood, and our cost model is really effective and efficient. So there are over 30,000 kids in the city of Detroit with no early care options, which are critically important because 90% of the brain is developed by age 3. We can't leave that many kids on the table, right? And we've been able, within 5 years, to get to serve 10,000 people. So that tells you a little bit about the ability to scale. But really, what I would say is organizations provide programs and services, and a community is there for each other. And what we are is both. Because we're so centered in the middle of the neighborhood, because we have advisories, and because we hire from the neighborhood, that's why it's working.
And so you talked about tailoring these programs specifically to these neighborhoods. You're not going in and implementing these. You're going into neighborhoods where you are invited in and then building the programs based on the needs of those specific neighborhoods, because no matter where you're going in the city of Detroit or in Metro Detroit or across the state of Michigan, anywhere in the world, the lives of children, the needs of children, especially in those formative years on an education front and just in general, are all going to be different. So when you're going into these neighborhoods, what is your organization doing to design those programs? What are you focusing on to provide the specific design of these programs that are needed for those kids in that neighborhood?
Right. So we have programs for kids and adults together, and adults only, really. And there are certain efforts that must happen. Everybody needs after-school tutoring, right? So we have that. Everybody needs support in terms of having a baby. We have that. But the neighborhood, and we have advisories in every single neighborhood, they help decide what hours should we be open? What else? What should we be going into further? Some of our neighborhoods, there may be a higher need for GED or English as a second language. And we have 100 partners that we provide programs along with. So we don't do this alone. We do this with many others, but it's all under one roof. A woman early on told me something that really helped explain this, which is, I asked the neighborhood, what do you need? And a person stood up and she said, I need this, and I need this. And she said, here's the thing is, I work more than full time and I don't drive. And people think access to a program is it's over here, over here, over here. Well, I can't do that. So what's different is we're really putting caregivers and parents at the center of this to ask them, really, what do you need for your family and how can we do that? But then we provide all evidence-based support to assure that the top quality is getting straight to people who want and need it.
We're joined by Cindy Eggleton, the CEO of Brilliant Detroit, with us today on the Megacast. And you mentioned, and it's mentioned here in my notes also, that part of Brilliant Detroit's efforts and their focus in these efforts is to support the entire family to help the child succeed. How much more important is it to ensure that not only the kids are getting the support that they need educationally, especially in those formative years, but also that you're providing support to parents who, in many cases, this could be their first child, this could be their third child, who knows? It could be a number of different scenarios for one parenting cohort to another, but it's important to provide those supports. How much more important do you find it to be to provide those supports to the parents as well as the kids to really support the full educational scope?
It's critical. First off, a strong family is built on the whole family feeling strong, right? Mm-hmm. Number two, for kids, their first teacher is their parent. It's their caregiver. That's their first teacher. And one thing that we've learned along the way is no parent doesn't want what is best for their family and kids. And so the stronger you help with the adults, the better the kids are going to do. And frankly, the better we all are going to do, because we work in neighborhoods sometimes where there is a high poverty rate, et cetera, and we really want to build efforts where kids and families can say, my life is not just better, it's totally transformed. And that's what we've been doing. And we've shown those results. We've been able to show 3 grade level improvement with the kids that we work with. And on everything we measure, we've shown significant improvement from a third-party evaluator. That's important. And it is because we're working with the whole family in a holistic way.
We're joined by Cindy Eggleton. She is the CEO of Brilliant Detroit, joining us today on the Megacast. And so, Cindy, when these families are going to these early childhood centers that are being built and established in these neighborhoods, let's start with the children. What are some of the programs that they are experiencing? Obviously, with it being different from one neighborhood to the next, what can people expect if they are taking their kids to these different centers of what their experiences will be and what they'll be engaged in?
Yeah, depending on where your child's age is, because we're with you from belly to 8. It's not just an 8-week program. We are with you. So if your child is under 3, you want to help increase their language and really your ability to talk and turn taking. We have programs in that way. If your child is between 3 and 5, we want to increase the ability to get kindergarten ready, to be able to self-regulate, to be able to read with your children. And if they're after 5, we want to help them with their school skills, etc. We also want to do social emotional, teach nutrition. So we have nutrition, and we have physical activity, as well as how do you improve your financial literacy. All of that is under one roof.
And then on the other side as well, for parents that are coming in to these centers as well, what are the programs that they're experiencing?
They may also need to increase their literacy. They need help with sometimes with how to manage as a parent, parenting skills. A lot of times they need help just actually feeling supported and actually getting some support in terms of additional food, etc. All of those things also are under our roof. And sometimes right now in the middle of COVID, people are feeling stressed. And we also have health and well-being and stress and mental health support.
We're joined by Cindy Eggleton. She is the CEO of Brilliant Detroit with us today on the Megacast, and transitioning the Little Free Library in conjunction with Brilliant Detroit held an initiative or launched an initiative this summer called Read in Color. Can you tell us a little bit about that initiative?
Yeah. So we're so blessed. We serve many, but we've also had these wonderful partners come in and really wrap their arms around. There's good people that want to do good things. So Little Free Libraries launched an effort out of Minnesota after George Floyd was murdered. And what it is they're little libraries where there are books also supplied to show that represent all people, people of color, people of different ages, people of different genders, and those books are available, brand new, beautiful books. And so we have been able to launch this at all of our sites, 14 sites, and we're thrilled because every kid, and frankly, every adult needs to see themselves in what they read.
And it's so important, too, not only to see yourselves represent yourself represented, or someone like you represented in your stories, in what content that you're consuming, whether it be a book, whether it be a television show, whether it be music, or just in your community. It's important also, especially in those early years, 0 to 8 years old, those formative years, to expose children to different people of different walks of life as well, so that they grow into more tolerant young adults and adults down the line. Because as we have seen more evident than ever in the past years, we know just from experiencing the raw, just childlike wonder of kids, because they're children, that the hate and the discrimination that is out there in our world is a learned behavior, but you can also learn and reinforce the learned behaviors of tolerance and of acceptance. And this is exactly how you do that.
That's right. It's twofold. It's seeing yourself, but also experiencing others. It's really both. And at some point in the world, we need to come together, what we call neighbor to neighbor, regardless of zip code. And that's one of the areas that I think we're really proud of. We have over 2,000 volunteers from over 250 zip codes that all come together for kids and families. And that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it just goes to show even more, and it's more evident of the fact that we are connected, that our communities are connected, and what happens in Detroit affects the northwestern suburbs, affects Grand Rapids, affects the Upper Peninsula, Indiana, Ohio, the Midwest region, and so on and so forth. And so when we have these programs that are in place, that are starting at the grassroots in our communities, we're really building strength in experiences, in education, and in numbers just from within our communities. We're joined by Cindy Eggleton. She's the CEO of Brilliant Detroit, with us on the Megacast, and with just a few more minutes with you. So I want to make sure we have enough time for you to really go into some detail about this. You have a fundraiser coming up. It's your 5th annual benefit. That'll be in late September. Tell us a little bit about that event and how people can get involved in this benefit.
Yeah, so it's September 23rd, and it's going to be both virtual and a little bit in person. And I want to just say, you can go on our website and you can register. There's no cost involved at this point. It is uplifting. In a world that can sometimes seem like there's a lot going on, we will have individuals that have been part of us for 5 years telling their stories. And I will tell you that there is nothing better. Last year we did something similar because we were still in COVID, and people walked away feeling really both inspired by who really are the true heroes in the middle of neighborhoods. And so it's one of my favorite days because we get to highlight really great people.
We're joined by Cindy Eggleton from Brilliant Detroit with us today on the Megacast. She is their CEO. Their benefit coming up, as she said, on September 23rd. That is a Thursday. September 23rd, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. You can register for virtual and in-person opportunities and support Brilliant Detroit on their website, brilliantdetroit.org. And Cindy, just another couple of minutes with you. They have a safe sleep class with a free pack and play online event coming up. Tell us a little bit about that event and maybe other events that are available, not only in person, but virtually as well at this moment in time.
I want to say you did a really good job researching us, so thank you. So we have all kinds of things coming up. Safe Sleep is one of them. You can just actually email us at info@brilliantdetroit.org on anything you might be interested in. We're also doing a potty training where there's free potty chairs being given away. You can sign up for tutoring. You can sign up for language classes. You can sign up for Zumba. Email us at info@brilliantdetroit.org. The other thing we have coming on right now is we're participating in the Rock Community Challenge. So if you're inclined and you want to give money to a great organization, it's another thing. You can go online, look that up, and contribute in that way. We really want people's hearts in what they do. So in any way, again, info@brilliantdetroit.org. People who may want to volunteer, we always need a ton of volunteers.
We're joined by Cindy Eggleton. She's the CEO of Brilliant Detroit. Cindy, just another minute with you before we say goodbye today. Anything else that would be important for our audience to know about your organization, or anything else that you'd like to say today?
Yeah, I'm just going to tell us a quick story of one of our participants, which is why this matters in community and in neighborhoods. This was somebody early on, and this is where I knew we were onto something, and she knitted hats for everybody at a community dinner, and 75 of them. And I said, wow, how'd you do it? And why did you do it? First off, I can't imagine it. And she said, I lived in this particular neighborhood for 30 years. I raised my kids. This was my neighborhood, and then it didn't feel like it, and now it does. That's what we're about. And while we're doing that, we're making sure that neighborhood is growing kids that can be successful in life.
Well, Cindy, we appreciate your time, appreciate what your organization is doing in Detroit and in the local area, and thank you for taking time with us today.
Thank you, and really great questions.
Thank you.
All right. Great.
Thank you very much. Cindy Aggleton, CEO of Brilliant Detroit. That's going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. I'd like to thank everyone that joined us on the program today, especially those like Cindy who joined us on shorter notice this morning. I appreciate her time today, as well as Nicholas Kristock from Fleece, and thank you, John McNamara from the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, Kecia Williams and Curt Lawson from the West Bloomfield Police Department, as well as the Etiquette Guru, Stacy, Amey, for joining us on the program today. Big thank you to our board operator and in-studio producer, Calvin Brown. At Back and Master Control, Jay Kristof, and as always, doing the great research, booking our guests, our booking producer, Larry Nyland. That's going to do it for our entire team over here at Civic Center TV. The Megacast returns tomorrow at 10 a.m.